Hello YouTube, you got Video Game House here once again with another deck profile video. And today's our Zoroark with his pet turtle day. So if you guys want to skip ahead to the video where we just show off the gameplay of the footage of what we are looking at here, you guys can skip to wherever it says on the screen somewhere. But if you guys want a little bit more of an in-depth explanation as to why the deck works and what it can do, you guys can hang out with me right here and I can explain all the cards and the synergies and such. So let's just start off with the main heavy hitter of the deck, Zoroark V and Vstar. Zoroark Vstar has a wonderful little attack called Ticking Curse. It does 50 damage times the amount of Pokemon on your side of the field that have damage counters on them. Now when he first came out forever ago, it was okay to hit 280 damage. That was more or less very positive for the meta. Not a lot of Pokemon went above 280, but now with the Stage 2 EXs, with Hero Cape, with a whole bunch of charms and such like that, it kind of doesn't work as well anymore, so it didn't see a lot of play. With the new addition of Area 0 Underdepths, however, that allows you to have up to 8 Pokemon on your bench. In total, you can have 9 Pokemon on your side of the field. If all of them have a damage counter, Zoroark Vstar with a very simple double turbo energy is able to hit up to 430 damage, knocking out even things like a Charizard EX with a Hero's Cape. The deck being incredibly consistent allows it to do this with very little effort, which you'll see in the video. Now this pairs really well with Pokemon like the Gengar that you guys can see there, because it has a wonderful ability that states when it's in the discard pile, you can bring it to your bench for free and put 3 damage counters on the Pokemon. Yeah, 3 damage counters is usually pretty bad because it puts it at 90, making it susceptible to Radiant Greninja shots, but again, it's just a single prize Pokemon that gives you a Pokemon that has damage counters already on it for Zoroark Vstar to work off of with Ticking Curse. Just another Pokemon you put on the bench and give yourself more damage. Again, this pairs really well with another Pokemon, the Doduo and Dodrio, which has Zooming Draw, which says place 1 damage counter on this Pokemon, draw 1 card. Again, another Pokemon that gives more damage to Zoroark, and it allows you to draw a card. So simple draw engine, but effective. Dodrio also has Ballistic Beak, which is a 10 damage plus attack. The plus being for every damage counter on Dodrio, it's able to do an extra 30 damage. Now, we learned while playing the matchups that this is an answer to Pokemon like Mimikyu. Zoroark obviously can't hit Mimikyu. Gengar can, and Dodrio can, and even Radiant Charjabug and Rotom can. But Dodrio is the immediate answer, which is why we run the Luminous Energy. Luminous is specifically in there over things like, you know, Psychic Energy that Gengar could use, or because you're able to use it for both the Gengar, who needs just 1 Psychic Energy, or Radiant Charjabug, if for some reason you ever need to attack a Radiant Charjabug. Radiant Charjabug has a 1 Electric Energy attack that says just place 30 damage on one of your opponent's Pokemon. I'm not entirely sure when that's going to be a better option than using Dodrio's, because all you have to do is use his ability, and he's already doing 40 to the active, but 30 to the bench is only really good in the matchup if somebody has, like, maybe a Cleffa, but I never see that as a better option than just setting something else up. But it's always good to think about these kinds of things. You never know if something has 30 HP. The new Joltik might see a ton of play, so you guys can use Charjabug to shoot it on the bench. Like I said, Cleffa, certain Pokemon do have 30 HP, and you are able to chase them down. Now, Terapagos EX is another addition to the deck, because you need to have 1 Tera Pokemon that Area 0 Underdepths, one Tera Pokemon on the bench, so that way Area 0 Underdepths is able to work. So, as long as you have the Terapagos on the board, you're able to have up to 8 on the bench. Terapagos, also 230 HP, is not bad for a basic, and it's still able to use its attack, which is a double turbo. For every Pokemon on your bench, you do 30 more damage. And so, if you have a full bench of Pokemon, Terapagos can hit 240 damage, minus 20 for the double turbo, so 220 is still no slouch, it's just not the best case scenario, but it's not like he doesn't come in clutch. Now, the Radiant Charjabug, its ability doesn't really affect your opponent much at all, but the Radiant Charjabug affects you, which is what makes it a little bit better. So instead of having to use your damage pump in order to set up a Zoroark Vstar with damage counters, you are easily able to go Zoroark V, Charjabug, double turbo, and now you have damage counters on your Zoroark V. Which again, you can damage pump them off and move them to other Pokemon if need be, but it allows you to get that extra damage that needs to be on the board for Zoroark Vstar to be able to swing much more powerful. Draw engines being just Fezandipiti, obvious, everyone's seen it before, but flip the script. If you've lost a Pokemon, you're able to draw 3 cards. Rotom Fan, the new one that just came out, its ability is that during your first turn and only during your first turn, you can add up to 3 normal Pokemon with 100 HP or less into your hand. So you can go Doduo, Dodrio, and usually you can just find either Dodrio throughout the game very quickly because you're burning through the rest of your deck super fast. And then there's Squawkabilly's Squawk and Seize, again, another ability that activates only on your first turn, which allows you to discard your hand and draw 5. Now, if you add in everything here, and you do things, say, you know, specific order, you know, a lot of these cards are very important, so it's hard to really hit Squawkabilly on one, but it's just an extra precautionary measure we can use. But if you needed to, your hand was just dead, you can Nest Ball out a Squawkabilly, Squawkabilly discards your hand, and you draw 5 cards. So we're going to start off with drawing our card for the start of the turn. That's 1 card. Squawkabilly allows you to use Squawk and Seize, discard your hand, draw 5. So now you're up to 6 cards drawn on your turn 1 phase. Then you play Rotom Fan from your hand, or a Nest Ball, get it from your deck. Let's just lowball it, say it's in our hand. So, you know, play it from our hand. Rotom Fan searches 3 Pokemon, Doduo, Dodrio. You're at 9 cards drawn on your first turn, and that just 9 cards out of your deck on your first turn, and you're still able to use a Nest Ball, Trekking Shoes, and all of those wonderful cards just to get more things, and Ultra Ball even, to get more cards out of your deck. And that's like the minimum, and it's super consistent to just thin your deck super, super fast. It just gives you so many things. If you went second, you still have a supporter to play. Maybe you throw Iono. Maybe all the cards in your hand are just not helpful, so you put them at the bottom. So now, from your 9 at like the bare minimum, and you hit Iono, now you draw 6 new ones, because it's still turn 1. You haven't taken a knockout, so you draw 6 new cards, because all the other ones are on the bottom. Or Research, you draw 7 new cards. You're up to like 15 or 16 cards, and that's without playing any of your Trekking Shoes, any of your Ultra Balls, any of your other abilities. Like, if you use Nest Ball from any of those other hands, you can get cards out of the deck, so you don't draw into those. Like, the deck can just super turbo its way through everything in one singular move. The deck has issues with switching, so you never really want to get rid of your switches. Your opponent is able to easily just boss up, say, the Gengar. It's a 3-cost retreat. It's impossible, or a 2-cost retreat. It's impossible just to get it off the board, so you don't really want to sit on that. If you can, you have a switch in your hand. Keep a switch in your hand. Try not to get rid of it if it's best. Damage Pump, obviously, moves damage counters around. You can use the Gengar to get 3. Damage Pump moves 2 of them over to 2 of your other Pokemon, and now you have 3 Pokemon with damage, which gives Zoroark 150 extra damage. Ultra Balls, Nest Balls, Trekking Shoes are all self-explanatory. We like to have Prime Catcher and Boss's Orders to bring in whatever we don't want sticking on the board on my opponent's side and slapping it upside the head for our big 430 damage smack that we do very consistently, can knock out most things no matter what they are, and just clean out the board before our opponent gets anything set up. We added a Lost Vacuum over Night Stretcher, so this is up to you guys. If you guys want to try using Night Stretcher first, it makes sense, because there is no way in this deck to retrieve your Pokemon after they've been knocked out. A lot of people are running the Night Stretcher mainly due to the 2 of Terapagos. I thought that the 2 of Terapagos is fine if you can get both on the board, or you can protect them in one way, form, or another, because if they knock one out, you still have another one, and if you're using Zoroark to attack and your opponent ignores Zoroark, even Zoroark at his worst will still have a full bench of 5 Pokemon and himself to do 280 damage, which is still very solid when you have 3 Boss's Orders and a Prime Catcher in order to bring up other Pokemon. I found that 2 Terapagos was more than enough to deal with most issues, so not knowing what your opponent's deck is, your opponent won't know to target the Terapagos because it's more important. So they will normally leave Terapagos alone if you put both on the board, because it's a futile ability to boss one up, take it out, and then they have to boss another one up and take it out again. But I've already hit you, and then you boss me up to take out a Terapagos, so I can hit you again because I still have the other one, so it's still knocking out whatever you put up. So if you're one-shotting a Terapagos, then I will one-shot you back with 400 damage, and haha, now I'm ahead, you've lost 2 big Pokemon, or even 1 big Pokemon sometimes is more than enough. And if they have to do a double turn where they have to boss you up just to bring out the Terapagos, it's like, okay, but my Zoroark is still here, so I will be beating you up. We added the Lost Vacuum because of Area 0 Underdepths. So one of the bigger issues that we found was spread damage decks. We ran into the Lost Box deck, right? And it was just, you know, spreading damage all over the place. And my Fezandipiti was a 2-prize liability, where it was on the board because it started the game in my active and I had to play it. But we were able to turn the entire game. We were going to turn the entire game around if they got rid of a stadium, because, or if we were able to get rid of a stadium, mainly just due to the factor of I had multiple Pokemon with damage counters on them. But I didn't need to have them on the board because all of their Pokemon had 100 damage or less in terms of HP. So I think if I had 4 Pokemon with damage counters on them, I was able to knock out the Radiant Charizard and everything else in their entire deck because it was Lost Box. So I didn't need to have all these Pokemon on the bench with a bunch of damage. So all I'd have to do is Lost Vacuum my own Area 0 Underdepths, remove all of the extra Pokemon that had damage counters on them, and then bring out another Area 0 Underdepths if I wanted to bring all my Pokemon back if I needed to with Gengar. Just, what single prizes, rather than having a 2-prize liability like Fezandipiti or Squawkabilly, I could have just brought back Gengars to do more damage if I needed to do more damage. Otherwise, I could have just gotten rid of all the bad Pokemon that had damage counters on them, and we would have just protected ourselves. So, Lost Vacuum is really good just as a 1-up, so that way you can remove your own Area 0, because a lot of people are running Area 0 right now. So, it does help with that matchup, and obviously, if your opponent's running a mirror match or something like that, if you hit, if you're running into a Terapagos list, you're running into a lot of decks that, like Hydrapple sometimes is running it right now, you're able to remove the Area 0, which does big removals. To our supporters play, Research, Iono, Bosses, nothing crazy, Double Turbo, Area 0 Underdepths, and the Luminous Energy is for our Dodrio to attack, which, in a clutch situation, Dodrio, using its own ability for a couple turns, damage pump onto the Dodrio. You can actually get it to 9 damage counters, which can hit 280 damage as a single prizer with 1 Luminous Energy. Radiant Charjabug again can attack. Gengar can attack. So all of those are just still playable options. Even the Rotom. In like the best case scenario, you start Rotom. They start with like a 70 HP Bulbasaur. Charmander's what was in my head. You can still Stadium Luminous hit it. Like, that's just a thing you can do. So, just something to think about. I know I was winded for a very long time here, but I do hope you guys enjoyed the little information that you may have gotten from this. Feel free to comment down below if you like this kind of long form where it's like, I can explain the entirety of the deck and what it does and what I've already practiced and figured out before we get into the video. But I hope you enjoy it, and let's get right into the gameplay. Now, gentle reminder, all of my videos are recorded prior. This is gameplay from Ladder on September 14th when we were streaming at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We streamed for, I think, 3 hours just to play out a couple of games with this, to learn how to play the matchups, play the game, and figure out what in the deck we can change. And I will be doing some just recorded gameplay. So if you guys want to see this happen live and, help me out with building the deck or whatever it may be, feel free to join me over my Discord, over at Twitch at twitch.tv/videogamehouse. You can find it in the description below. So I hope to see you guys there. We do a lot of giveaways, a lot of games and stuff like that. So this was my first game with the list where we started kind of figuring out more and more of what we wanted to do. The setup gameplay, you guys saw I started Fezandipiti. My opponent thankfully started Fezandipiti. So we started just throwing some things around. This is like my immediate first misplay is I had Charjabug, and I realized immediately I could have played Charjabug, then played the Zoroark, but I got antsy, so I'm like, ooh, Double Turbo, I know what to do with this, Double Turbo. That was dumb. So now I missed out on 2 damage counters that should be on the board for my Zoroark in order to be able to do more damage. So our hand and our board doesn't look super crazy, but remember, we used Squawkabilly on 1, we set up all these cards on turn 1, we have a full bench, we have double turbo, and we have Zoroark Vstar in our hand. Our opponent doesn't know that, so they might think we have a dead hand, but one Zoroark Vstar gives us Phantom Star, so it doesn't matter what I draw into, I'm already going +7. This is the new Miraidon list we're up against. People are running the Mewtwo as an electric Pokemon because it's able to just quickly search out of the deck with Miraidon, and you can use Area 0 Underdepths to put up to 8 cards on your bench, and that way you're able to use, in the top left hand right there, Raikou with 8 cards on your bench, plus your opponent's 5 cards, let's say, and make it just work. So I evolved the wrong one, so I immediately went, oh man, I screwed that up, and I totally didn't just go, nah, I got this. I did that on purpose because now I still need to put a double turbo energy on it, right? So if I put a double turbo energy on it, I can put 2 damage counters on it, and then I can do damage with it, right? So this is one of our first instances of Phantom Star ability into research, and we were able to get now this entire board set up. We had 5 on the bench, now we're up to 7 with and then the bosses, which brings out more things. So now we're just looking. No, I don't want that. Let me see something else. Oh, look, damage pump. Oh, let's just move those damage counters off of this. Doesn't really matter where. In certain matchups, it does, and you don't really ever put damage counters on Fezandipiti because 200 is easy to hit, 210 is a little weird sometimes, like Dragapult's matchup, which you'll see later. We didn't want to give our opponent those +3s, so we just take out the Fezandipiti rather than going after Raikou for damage because that +3 means a little bit more. And obviously I have a full bench now. The Raikous and the Entei's and the Palkias are kind of annoying with the matchup, mainly due to the factor of I want to have 8 Pokemon on my deck, on my bench, so it just gives them a whole bunch of damage. But even with that, we still can play around the lists pretty well. So my opponent is just setting up, using Miraidon to get 2, played the Greninja. I'm checking out the Terapagos because I'm trying to figure out how much damage it can do, because again, this is like my first matchup, so I'm still learning the list. But obviously, the more you play, the more you learn. My opponent Raikou's and almost hits maximum damage on it, which was awesome to see. And since the Raikou only has 180 HP due to our double turbo, we are able to use Terapagos' big damage to hit 220 because we have a full bench. Or 240, but minus the 20 because of double turbo, so it's able to just clean up Raikou and move on with our match. We take 2 prizes with the trade, and I'm looking at my bench. In the bottom right, you can't see it due to my camera, but right underneath me right here, that's another Terapagos EX. So even if he takes out the one in the active, I have the backup one, so Area 0 Underdepths is still triggering for me, so that way I am able to keep my 8-card bench. And we already have, right there, Zoroark Vstar, who's already set up on the bench with another double turbo. So we also have a huge, massive hand with 2 bosses orders in it, so even worst case scenario, my opponent like bosses up the Zoroark and knocks it out, I can still use boss on any of his Pokemon that have 220 HP or less. That's, a 2-prizer, and then just boss Terapagos knockout. So it felt so good because I was able to do so much damage so easily that it was a super checkmate kind of board where my opponent just couldn't really react, even though they're able to use things like Miraidon to set up an entire board in a single play. To their positive setup there, though, they are trying to set up the Iron Hands on that bench play there, because if they are able to, they take 2 prizes here, and if I couldn't knock them out, they'd be able to go the Iron Hands, take on, say, Rotom Fan or Gengar, and just do a one-shot knockout. So it didn't make much of a difference. I'm just throwing more cards here to try and get that damage up. So Shining Block, and we were able to get that knockout. It was the 430, so I was going for the big damage because it was like the first time, and I wanted to do the big full damage. People who know me know big damage go burr, and I like seeing big number. So I try my best to go with the big number. Reference the Hydreigon video that we just put out. Alright, so not a bad start. Yes, we don't have Zoroark, so it's kind of iffy, but Terapagos is still pretty solid. We're able to set up Area 0 with it, so It's an okay start. We did see Palkia on our opponent's board right there, so we already know that we have to deal with Palkia and Noctowl. Palkia Noctowl is a very solid deck right now because Noctowl is whenever you evolve your Hoothoot into a Noctowl, it allows you to search your deck for up to 2 trainer cards, and those 2 trainer cards are just able to pop off, usually like either way. It can be energy switches, it can be boss's orders, it can be anything as a trainer card. So my opponent just sets up very heavy here by using Rotom Fan, gets another Noctowl and another Hoothoot and 2 Noctowls. And I'm just looking at the board state of what can I do. Terapagos' 2 energy attack unfortunately has this really negative side to it that if you're going second and it is your first turn, stupid wording, I know, but just what it is. You cannot use its double turbo based attack. So I still set it up because I didn't want to lose out on using a double turbo energy here. But also, you know, I really did not. Ooh, free. I didn't want to, I didn't want to do it because like I can't attack. I know I can't attack. So this is more of a, I'm just trying to set some things up here. I'm going to Squawkabilly. I look at my hand. I don't really want to lose the switch here, but I need Area 0. So I'd use this, I get a Gengar out of my hand, because I know I was going to discard my whole hand anyway, and just reset. And then I still don't hit my Area 0, which was going to set up 2 Doduos, and I had 2 Dodrios in my hand. I am like, I don't even know how many cards, like 20 cards out for like that single turn with my hand, my draw, my reset of my hand with the Squawkabilly, my supporter. I went like so many cards in. 4 Area 0 Underdepths and 0 show up, so that was pretty upsetting. We're still able to work around it, it just doesn't feel good, you know? This is when I was checking to see if like my Iono hurt him in any way, and it did because he did have a Noctowl in hand. I put it at the bottom, and the other Noctowl he might be running is in the discard pile, so. My opponent is able to try and set me up for a bad situation with a Prime Catcher, so I can't attack with Terapagos, but unbeknownst to him, we also run Prime Catcher, we also run Switch, we also run bosses. Like, all we have to do is just find something that works. So, luckily, for me, my opponent plays Area 0 Underdepths, so I'm able to start working off of that, and start just using my cards to bring up damage on things that need damage. And start, obviously, abusing my board, my hand state a little bit. Oh, we want that bosses, because if we're able to get this off, it works really well. We can use a double turbo for retreat cost. It's not great, but removing Palkia with this board state just leads to a free win. Alright, now onto our next game. Whee! Now, I don't know if you guys have been able to really check it so far or see what I've been able to do, but we were able to set up a board of nothing into a board of 8 bench space, into huge damage, into Turtle still being able to clear things. So Zoroark's pet turtle Terapagos is still pretty valuable in terms of damage. The deck likes to go first, I will admit to this. It likes to go first because it does need a turn to evolve Zoroark. Terapagos can't swing if it's your first turn going second, it can't attack. So if you went first and you can't attack anyway, it doesn't feel as bad. So we're just going through our motions right here, trying to get everything. Our Rotom fans searched there. I don't know if anyone noticed it there, but we searched and found 2 Dodrios and no Doduos. Pretty bad when you're trying to set up a board state for damage, but push comes to shove, we're still okay. Because we don't run Hisuian Heavy Ball, and mainly that's only for the factor of the one-ofs in the deck, say Fezandipiti or Squawkabilly, aren't incredibly necessary to the factor of you need to use Heavy Ball to get them out super quick. They're not, like, part of the end game board. We wanted to check how much damage we were doing with Terapagos before we did anything here, so luckily we were able to still set ourselves up. We wanted to get a backup Zoroark, because we don't need the backup Terapagos when we don't even have 5 Pokemon on the bench. This felt bad. I was so ready to go, well, this is not going to work in my favor. And thank God it did, but I was very easy that I could have tossed it, drawn into another one, had to discard it, so that way I can set up a whole bench space, but we're able to still use Unified Beatdown with Terapagos for 130 to take out the Hawlucha. Bop! Just to get the one prize. The list over here for Dragapult started using the new Stellar Crown Ace Spec Crystal Crown or something like that. I forgot what it was called. It just makes it so that way your Stellar Pokemon, or your Terastallized Pokemon, sorry, all of its attacks cost 1 energy less. It doesn't matter what energy it is. It just is 1 energy less to attack. My personal feelings is that that is not a very good card. It's makes Dragapult attack for 1 energy, sure, but I feel like it just doesn't work that well, in my opinion. I feel like it just doesn't, it's not the better Ace Spec that you could be running. Like, Prime Catcher to me feels just better, because obviously if you can just set up your Dragapult with 2 energies, and then boss up something that can get knocked out and weaken everything else. So this is actually a very odd matchup, right? Because if you put damage counters on my Pokemon, Zoroark does more damage, and with Dragapult, you're able to push damage counters onto the board and just give me more damage. If you don't take something out with those damage counters, then you're only giving me more damage. So this was smart though. He Hawlucha did a 10 damage on one of my Pokemon to set it up for a move way later, which was smart here because Dragapult can put 6 damage counters down, right? So if it puts 6 damage counters on Zoroark Vstar, it puts it to 210 HP, which it cannot knock out. But if you put 10 damage counters on it now, Dragapult is able to use another attack, putting it down to 270 to 200 HP, and then Dragapult can take it out later. It was a genius play. I didn't see at the time, but after looking back on it, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Because I thought the 10 damage was kind of not worth doing, but it's one of those setup moves that you have to think of like 12 turns in advance in order to make it successful in a way. So I did not want to get rid of bosses. I did not want to get rid of Switch. I have I think my final decision was I have 3 bosses in the list, but only 2 switches. And I was like, if my opponent bosses me, I'm screwed. But if I boss him, it doesn't make that big of a difference. This is me trying to find the damage I need for Zoroark to actually get that knockout, because we still are able to switch, or we're able to retreat. We take the retreat here because we were playing around our opponent using a boss's orders, and we look at our damage, it's 280. We were able to set up 330 damage with ease. Like, it was just another day in the neighborhood here, and we saved our switch, because Terapagos didn't need that double turbo anymore anyway. So we're able to just use the switch option if my opponent decides to boss up, say, the 230 Terapagos and have it get locked there. We can use switch to get rid of it and just bring back our Zoroark. So our board state is already hitting 330, which means at least 2 of our Pokemon don't have damage counters on them. But 330 means that Dragapult doesn't have a leg to stand on, and we're ahead in the prize trade, and we have a backup Zoroark on the bench ready to go. Basically just showing my opponent, it doesn't matter what you do, I can trade for a positive win here. But also, because we run so many bosses, and we run Prime Catcher, and we have the damage, we don't want to let our opponent draw extra cards with Fezandipiti. We're able to use boss's orders almost every single time, bring up that Fezandipiti, and 210 is nothing in the face of 430 maximum damage, so we just boss up the Fezandipiti, take it out. My opponent goes, I am safe, because even if he takes me out, I can use a draw option to get ourselves that plus 3 in our draw for our turn, plus all of our supporters and items and tools. We're able to get more cards. If you can take away Fezandipiti from them, it is such a good feeling. I'm looking at my hand going, man, I don't really got a lot here, but, well, let's see what happens. We have Damage Pump, moving damage counters off. This is where I was like, this is a dumb idea, because if I put 10 damage on Fezandipiti, it just becomes a 2-prizer, but I have 5 prize cards left on my opponent's side of the board, and if my opponent takes the time to knock out Fezandipiti for a 2-prizer, and then damage Terapagos, he takes 4 prizes, but it's already too late, because whatever Pokemon comes into the active, I'm able to set up a board state where I already have 430. Taking out 2, I'm still doing 330. And I couldn't find a way for my opponent to knock me out and take 5 prizes in a singular turn. And I think my opponent does exactly that, where it was a semi-bait. The only thing that I could have thought of was, like, maybe some instance where he's able to use the Hawlucha to, like, I don't know, somehow like multiple Hawluchas or something. I was like, there's no way that my opponent is able to take on a 5th prize this turn. Terapagos has 50 HP left, so obviously Dragapult slaps him upside the head, and the matchup is over for that guy. And he could use bosses, or Counter Catcher, which he did, to take out the Fezandipiti. So, you know, we lose 2, but like, my opponent couldn't use Briar, which is another new supporter that if you don't know what it does, it basically says you can only use this if your opponent has 2 prize cards remaining. You can take an extra prize card if your Terra Pokemon knocks out your opponent's active Pokemon. So, like, he could have if I had another prize left. So, we're just moving damage counters around, making sure we're able to do that big damage. We already have it, and I was just throwing things at the board until I was able to be ready, and then Ticking Curse gets that knockout, we get the 2 prizes, and we take the match. Oh, and that was just an effect. Area 0 Underdepths, by the way, guys, if you're actually watching this at this point, breaks the game quite often. I think we had 2 or 3 instances during stream where Area 0 just started flipping my cards over, becoming a purple mess, crashing the game, and I think it might be this game where that does happen. So, you know, if you're already here, we're taking a look at a fan call to make sure it still works and such. We look at our hand, we look at our bench, we look at everything on the board, just see what we can do. Our opener isn't super crazy, but we're up against the wonderful Hydrapple. I was confused because I don't remember this Applin, so I looked at it like 4 times. I'm like, is that the new one? No, because it was a grass one in the new one. So what does it do? So we have a lot of setup, and since we got to go first this time, it's very good. We can set up the double Doduos, we can set up a Dodrio in our hand. Like, basically everything we have here is kind of rough at best. I really wanted this card, so hooray for me. We have a full setup turn. Now we are able to evolve Zoroark into Zoroark. We're allowed to get Dodrio to evolve so we can put damage counters on the board. We have a damage pump, and we have Gengar in hand. If we're able to get Gengar into the discard pile, we're able to bring it back, damage pump, move damage counters around. And it's all super consistent, and it just feels so strong. That lady card, I am thinking about putting in my own Hydrapple list, where it just goes, lady, get 4 energies to hand, and you're just like, cool, I got 4 energies, and I have Area 0 Underdepths, so I have 4 Teal Mask Ugrapons on the board, so I just put them all down. So lady becomes a pull 4 cards out of your deck, so it's a +4, and then if you use Teal Mask Ugrapon 4 times because of all those energies you just took out, you go another 4, so you go, lady is more or less like, take bad cards like energies out of your deck so you can get more items and such, and then draw 4 more so you can just get more things. So we did get the damage pump off, so we're able to get some big plays here. I play Prime Catcher, I bring up the Teal Mask Ugrapon because we're already almost there. We're at 130. I need 2 more Pokemon to get damage counters on them. I have a Gengar in hand, so I kind of vote on getting rid of my double turbo so I can get more cards all set up. Thank gosh, we find the Dodrio to draw another card, and we're just, like, not quite there, but we are there. So we get the Terapagos so we can fill our bench, and then we can use the Area 0 Underdepths, and then we just toss away some other stuff so we can get our Gengars into the discard pile, because now we have 2. We give ourselves that extra, like, safety with the second Terapagos, and we Netherworld Gate, and that's plus 100 damage just for putting them on the bench. And then we just set up Doduo with Zooming Draw with the one extra Luminous, because if it takes a bunch of damage, it is able to still attack, so it becomes a single prize threat on the board. Opponent's turn, they take... I mean, removing a Teal Mask Ugrapon in a Hydrapple matchup feels awesome, because obviously it's one of their ways to get big damage. 260 HP is what I'm looking at on my side of the board. I think they need 7 energies to do that. So without a Teal Mask Ugrapon on the board, that makes things really hard to figure out. His manual attach plus a Teal Mask Ugrapon plus Hydrapple is the only way you can get 3 energies on the board, so he's never doing enough. Since he was nowhere close to doing enough damage there, I'm feeling good, because there's a possibility right here where if I set up well enough with, say, Phantom Star Zooming Draws, I am able to still fix this. So I did use double Zooming Draw first. I realized that that's not the best idea, and I'm trying to draw first, which is a mistake on my part. I'm setting up another Zoroark just because I could have used Phantom Star first, and I would have drawn into research, and I would have been able to play this a little better. An extra switch, an extra research, but that's more of like a learning curve kind of a thing. I am moving damage counters like off of my Gengar because I'm like, oh, you know, Gengar is the automatic pick, but like I kind of messed that up because I didn't think about it. I could have moved the damage counters off the active, which would have been a little bit safer. It would have given me a total of 100 HP instead of 80, or yeah, 80, which I had. But like, I guess my argument is that it didn't really make a difference because I was never able to get under like 120 or whatever that Ogerpon can do. So it didn't really matter. It didn't really matter. And we had the backup Zoroark ready to go. Terapagos actually can still do 220 damage. My opponent jamming tower is to get rid of my bench, so I get rid of Gengar, and I think Rotom it was there. So, you know, 3 worthless options. So we're able to just bring our bench back up with a single Area 0 Underdepths since we have 2 turtles. Area 0 can push our stuff back to 8, and we're still able to just kind of pop off here. Last turn, we added Charjabug to our hand, thinking that this might happen. So now we're able to actively go back with Area 0 Underdepths. We have Fezandipiti for the draw. We have Damage Pump to move things over. So, like, we're able to set up for future turns every single time we do anything. And the Gengars, having a 3 of Gengar means that if we have Gengar, all 3 Gengars in the discard pile, and we lose Area 0 Underdepths, we're able to go Area 0 Underdepths that we could have saved in our hand from all of our drawing, and then just bring all your discard pile back onto the bench of 3 Gengars, so you go from 5 back to 8 immediately. This time we did it right, where we were discarding things first and playing everything, and then we're playing Zooming Draw, Fezandipiti to draw more cards. We're taking a look. What do we still need here? We have the double turbo. We just need to attack or figure some things out. And how are we going to get Zoroark Vstar? Luckily for me, I'm just... What do I need to do here? What do I need to do? I will just attack and switch out to the dead one. So I built up all that turn, and I totally forgot that I didn't use Fezandipiti. I'm not going to lie to you. I could have sworn that I hit the button. I think I hit the button the second time for Fezandipiti. I totally forgot. Whoops! Yeah, that was just me misplaying. Good to put on a game reel where you're trying to show off how good the deck is when you just misplay. But, you know, whatever. Yes. So, this is when the game starts to break. Iono into just massive cards. I don't know why it did that, but it did. And luckily for us, we did end up drawing into an Ultra Ball and a dead card. Discarding some bunch of stuff. Doesn't matter. And, don't need another Terapagos. So, because he played Iono, my bosses was safe. So I didn't want to lose Zooming Draw, Fezandipiti, and I need Terapagos in case I do get another, Area 0. He takes a knockout here. The Legacy comes out of bloody nowhere, by the way. A Hydrapple list that's running a Legacy is definitely a move. And I decided to go for the Dodrio, mainly due to the factor of, see the giant card, the Dodrio, because if I can damage pump it and I can move damage counters, and I just sit here like, oh, that's a thing. Cool. So we have the boss's orders, and then we're trying to get the damage counters up. There's damage pump, and I draw for another card, and game breaks. So you guys can see I have the damage pump in my hand. Dodrio hits 30 damage times the amount of damage counters you have on it, plus 10. So I would damage pump. There it goes. I tried to play it. It just dies. I was going to use damage pump, move 2 damage counters off that floating Dodrio you guys see right there, onto the Dodrio in the active, putting it at 7 damage counters. 7 damage counters times 3 is 210, plus 10 from the normal attack itself, knocking out Mew, and we were allowed to take our last 2 prizes. But Pokemon TCG Live, being a wonderful client that it is, and has absolutely no bugs, I'm just hitting every button I possibly can to try and do something. And it just wasn't working. So, unfortunately, that's just what happens. Area 0 Underdepths, as of right now, causes a billion bugs with the game. So, sorry that you can't win them all when it comes down to you supposed to be getting a win. The game just wants to die sometimes. So, what I would probably say is don't do anything fancy and just hit your opponent as quickly as possible. If you wanted to try it, because obviously sometimes the game will just die on you. Sometimes this right here, the prize and timer and everything like that, will just vanish. When you play like areas, if Area 0 gets removed, like the animations go in like a wonky pattern and doesn't work. So anyway, normal startup with Rotom Fan gets me 2 Dodrios. I do not choose to get the Dodrios because we're going to be discarding our whole hand anyway. So we just want to try and get some extra, we want to save those. Awesome. Just a waste of 2 Ionos, by the way. Iono into discard into another Iono. Cool. I'm discarding the whole hand anyway. We're just going to set up, because we didn't get a double turbo, we can just set up our Dodrio. The reason I was moving those things around is because Rotom can still hit for 70. My opponent went Charjabug pass in a mirror match. My thought process here was put damage on board. That was a not smart thought process, by the way. Me forget that if I see Radiant Charjabug, it's going to be a Zoroark matchup, and they have Damage Pump. So why the heck did I attack? It was a very silly move. My opponent hitting this Iono here is a little bit good for both of us here. Because he needed movement, and I needed a new hand, because I had 2 Professor's Research and a bosses, which I didn't want to remove. I thought I was going to be all cheeky with this because I have the Lost Vacuum, so I was like, oh, I can use Area 0, set up a bench, and then my opponent can, set up their bench, and then I use Area 0 to get rid of it, and then... Or I use a Vacuum to get rid of the Area 0, and then he has to discard, and then I use Area 0 to get my shit back, but it never panned out that way. Zooming Draw gets us a double turbo, but we also don't have an evolution, we don't have anything special, no fancy stuff, and I'm looking at his board with 3 cards. I don't know if he has everything that he needs, so it's... Also, I didn't think about it. The mirror match, this is my first mirror match with this, and I was thinking, how does this work? What do I do? I'm not getting the things that I need, and he's not getting the things that he needs, so it's like weird. My board states look better. My board state looks better than his, but it's also difficult to say who's doing anything right now. With a double Radiant Charjabug on the board, anyone who puts an energy on a V Pokemon, aka our biggest attacker, it is just a negative. His Radiant Charjabug's stuck in the active. He can't get out of it, and I can't find a Zoroark Vstar in order to monopolize on, like, Phantom Star into bosses, into knockouts. So, we're both just sitting there with twiddling our thumbs, hoping for the best, and not getting anywhere with it. But, again, everything is more or less a learning experience. So, I'm trying to figure out how to play the matches out. And it seems that in the mirror, if one Radiant Charjabug's on the board, you do not need to put yours down unless absolutely necessary until the end of your turn. Like, you can just, like, wait on it and then just go, okay, my last card I play, last Radiant Charizard, Radiant Charjabug, after you've already used your double turbo and you've already done your whole turn, because that way if your opponent uses it, then they get double penalized, where you only need to get the first penalization, so that way you can get the damage off. We are starting to move here. We got our Damage Pump, we got our Zoroark Vstar, we have Zooming Draw, we got the Prime Catcher, so we can just bring up whatever we want. So all we have to do is just push some damage around here and there, and suddenly everything just kind of goes in our favor. We already know we're taking a knockout here, so we use our Prime Catcher, set everything up. We use Phantom Star and Zooming Draw. Sorry, we don't use Phantom Star. I would use Phantom Star, but unfortunately, due to the fact that I have both of my other Zoroark Vstars in my hand, I cannot use Phantom Star. But stealing this knockout means a lot for the rest of this match, because now my opponent still needs to find another double turbo, another Zoroark Vstar, and set up a whole board to do 250 damage, which means I think they need 6 Pokemon in total with damage counters on them, which obviously is not difficult to do, like I've been saying the entire time. He already has 5, and a singular energy on the Zoroark will put more damage counters on it due to the double Radiant Charjabugs. My opponent is just popping off. And, you know, there's that damage. There's that other damage. And now he's at 230 HP. I already have a full board of damage, so it's not really that big of a deal. And in this matchup, Area 0 Underdepths is kind of dead. Mainly just due to the factor that if one of us plays it, it affects both of us positively, so it doesn't matter. Using a damage pump, he now has a full board of damage, and that's just all you have to do to max out that damage count that matters in this game, because neither one of us need to max out the damage. We just need a certain amount of damage to take those knockouts. He is moving damage around, so that way it makes his Pokemon like more susceptible to giving that big damage bonus. But I took a prize first, and now if it just goes prize trade back and forth, I end up winning the matchup. And obviously, I'm able to do that very easily, just, you know, because I was able to get that prized Zoroark out. I have the double, you know, the double Zoroark Vstars in my hand, so all I have to do is just keep that damage up. I'm still not going to use Phantom Star here, because I wish I had more cards in my hand. I wish I had more things to do, sure, but there's no reason to. There just isn't a reason. So, since we're coming down to a close of our matchups, I think this deck did really, really well on ladder. I think this deck does really, really good overall. It was not too difficult to learn it. I think we only played like 10 to 15 games last night, and we got really good matchups, really good things. Right now, the worst matchup, I will say, you will 99% of the time lose to Greninja. Greninja's a fighting type. Fezandipiti is weak to fighting. Zoroark Vstar is weak to fighting. Terapagos is weak to fighting. And it has 310 HP. So it only needs 1 energy to knock you out. And some of them, the one that I found, is running that new Shining Crown thing that I talked about earlier, which makes the Greninja attack for 0. So it's able to just go like Arven, Rare Candy evolved to Greninja, Crown, punch for 340, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. So once again, I'll bring up the list for y'all. And I'll say my final piece here. Again, thank you guys for watching the video all the way through. Even if you just used it as background noise, I really appreciate it. You guys are valid. Love that. The deck is very strong, very fast, and very versatile. It's able to use the Terapagos as an attacker, the Dodrio as an attacker, the Zoroark as an attacker. Heck, in the absolute worst case scenario, a double turbo and a Luminous on Fezandipiti can become an attacker. Radiant Charjabug can be an attacker. It's able to go everywhere with the list. Most options are better than others, but it's still able to do it all. You're able to draw out like a fourth of your deck every single turn if you actually wanted to, with combinations like Phantom Star and Research, Phantom Star Iono. You got Trekking Shoes to go through cards, Ultra Ball to get more things, Squawkabilly for 1, the Rotom Fan at the beginning of your game in order to get your Doduos and Dodrios, Dodrio for more cards. Is just so consistent. 430 is so much damage, one of the highest damages you can do, like, casually in the game, and it's able to destroy every single Pokemon in the game, even if it's wearing a hero's cape, outside of, like, I don't know, 3 Pokemon that have a total an HP of 340, I think. It's like Skeledirge and Garganacl, I think, and then maybe like one other I can't think of. But like, all of the biggest Pokemon in the top meta of the game right now, this just eats them. It one-shot Hydrapple. It one-shot Dragapult. Twice. So, I think the deck is very, very strong. If you guys watched the whole video, you guys understood that. And I do hope you guys enjoyed the list. I hope you guys get to play it. If you guys do enjoy it, make sure you guys hit me up in the comments section below. And if you guys think there's anything better that this deck can do, absolutely let me know. Check out my Discord, check out the YouTubes, and I hope to see you guys in our next video.